On Monday night, just after midnight, Lakita Jordan, the mother of...
This affidavit sent to us by Tyler PD includes some gruesome details about the death of 18-year-old.
There's still a lot of follow-up.
My heart just dropped because...
When you first meet her, it's like you know her already.
Some tragedies don't begin with gunshots or knives, but with something so small, so seemingly harmless, that no one could ever predict what would follow. A playful gesture, a light-hearted tug on the ear, a fleeting moment between two people who once called each other friends. Yet it led to a horrifying ending. A young girl brutally murdered by the very person she trusted most. Dejah Hood, only 18 years old, a flower just beginning to bloom in the garden of life, carrying dreams so simple yet so beautiful. To make the world more beautiful, to care for children, and to live fully with her warm, loving heart. But her fate was ripped away, cruelly and mercilessly, not by a stranger, but by someone she called a friend, all because she unknowingly triggered a memory, a wound, a fragile ego, too weak to control its rage. The story you're about to hear is not a movie script. It's not an urban legend. This is real, a cold, painful truth that forces us to reflect on how we handle our emotions, on how anger hides behind the mask of friendship, and on the devastating price we pay when trust is betrayed. She was killed by her best friend, just because she tugged on his ear. This is the story of Dejah Hood. Welcome to Echoes of Crime, where shocking true crime stories are told. Leave your thoughts in the comments so we know what stories you'd like us to share next. And don't forget to subscribe. It helps us keep telling these important stories. Now, let's begin today's story. Dejah Hood, just 18 years old, the age when most people dream of freedom, the future, and new horizons. She lived in Tyler, a small city in the heart of Texas, known for its quiet streets and friendly faces. But it was in that very place, a place that seemed safe, that an unimaginable loss would unfold. Dejah wasn't a celebrity. She didn't have glamorous titles or appear on magazine covers. But to those who knew her, who loved her, Dejah was sunlight. The kind of person who made everything feel better, simply by being there. She loved beauty, obsessed with hair, makeup, and especially with transforming others through her touch. Her social media wasn't just about looks, it was about connection. Those short videos and pictures she shared, they weren't for vanity. They were her way of spreading joy. Someone once said, every time Dejah posted, it was like lighting up my whole feed. But Dejah was so much more than appearances. She was the kind of person who truly listened. Always the first to comfort, the first to reach out, the first to drop everything just to be there when someone needed her. Among her friends, she wasn't just a best friend. She was the sister, the soul mum. Compassion ran through her veins, and her heart, bigger than anyone could imagine. To her family, she was a source of pride. Fresh out of high school, Dejah was already dreaming bigger, planning to pursue cosmetology or healthcare. She loved children. She once said she wanted to do hair and care for babies at the same time. While others her age were lost in life's crossroad, Dejah had already drawn her own map. A humble, honest path filled with love and purpose. But perhaps what made Dejah truly unforgettable was how she made others feel seen and cared for, whether you were family, a friend, or just someone she chatted with online. Dejah left a mark. a rare soul who gave generously, loved deeply, and lived every moment with intention. And then, that life, that heart, that light was snuffed out, not by fate, not by illness, but by someone she once called a friend. And that is what makes this story 1,000 times more heartbreaking. Monday, September 25th, 2023. A day that seemed perfectly ordinary in the life of a young woman just stepping into adulthood. No one could have imagined it would be the last day her family ever saw Dejah Hood alive. That afternoon, Dejah left home with a 1-year-old girl, a child she was babysitting for a family acquaintance. She looked as she always did, lively, graceful, hair neatly styled, a soft touch of makeup. She told her mother she was going over to Jamaria Britton's place, a close friend, to help him pack up and move after a recent breakup with his girlfriend. For Dejah, helping others was never a burden. She was the kind of person who opened her heart to anyone who needed her, especially Jamaria. They'd known each other for years, grown up together in Tyler, shared countless stories, from heartbreaks to dreams of a better life. Dejah trusted him. She even brought the 1-year-old with her, as if that alone proved how safe she felt around Jamaria. But after that moment, both Dejah and the baby vanished from her family's radar. And that was completely unlike her. Dejah always stayed in touch. She never ignored her mother's texts. Even if she was just out for a few hours, she'd send a quick, "I'm okay," or "Don't worry, Mum," just like clockwork. But that night, her phone was silent. The screen never lit up. Dozens of calls from Lita Jordan, her mother, went straight to voicemail, swallowed by a cold, endless tone. Her mother texted, "Sweetheart, I've been trying to call. You haven't answered. Is everything okay? Please just text me back." No reply. Not a single sign. The baby was quietly returned to her parents by Jamaria's mother. But Dejah wasn't. And when Lita asked questions, all she got were vague shrugs and blank stares. Worry turned to panic. Friends and family began calling everyone they could think of. They searched social media. No one had heard from Dejah. No one saw her leave Jamaria's apartment. No one had heard her voice or spotted her face since that Monday afternoon. By midnight, her mother called the police, and in her trembling voice there was a chilling certainty. Something was wrong. Dejah wasn't the type to be irresponsible. She wasn't the type to run away. She wasn't the type to disappear without a trace. A girl with a clear schedule, who always told her family where she was, had suddenly gone silent. As if she'd vanished off the face of the earth. The air in her home grew heavier with every passing hour. Worry turned into suspicion. Hope began to rot into fear. Had she been in an accident? Was her phone dead? Or worse, had something happened to her right there, inside the home of the person she trusted most? And somewhere, on the outskirts of Tyler, a dark truth was beginning to unravel. A horrifying secret waiting to be exposed. And the very first alarm bell was the silence that screamed louder than anything else. The next morning, September 26th, 2023. When Dejah Hood still hadn't returned home, the Tyler Police Department officially launched an investigation, treating it as a serious missing person case. Their first stop, Jamaria Brittain's apartment, the last known person to have seen Dejah the night before. Holly Tree Apartments, a place that looked serene from the outside, with neatly trimmed lawns and white picket fences, was hiding something very wrong. From the moment officers knocked on Jamaria's door, they sensed it. A strange smell, thick and unsettling, a mix of cheap cleaning solution and something metallic, wet and decaying. A smell of death, trapped for too long. Inside the apartment there was clutter, but it wasn't the mess that caught the officers' attention. It was the smears of blood, faint but visible, staining the carpet, and the droplets splashed along the wall. At first, Jamaria nervously claimed it was from his dog, a recent injury. But no one was buying that, especially not when the officers noticed a faint trail dragging from the hallway all the way to the back door. They followed it, through the small backyard, near the fence beside a shallow creek. They found it, a large black trash bag wedged between filthy bedsheets, wrapped tightly in a bedspread, held together by strips of grey duct tape, covered in dry leaves, as if someone had tried, in desperation, to bury the truth under nature's silence. Inside was the mutilated body of Dejah Hood. From the wounds on her body, investigators were able to reconstruct the horrifying sequence. She had been struck on the head with a liquor bottle, then strangled until she couldn't breathe. And while she was still clinging to life, she was beaten repeatedly with a hammer with such force that the handle of the hammer snapped in half. But the nightmare didn't stop there. After Jamaria left to return the baby to Dejah's mother, he came back and found Dejah still breathing, barely alive. In panic, or perhaps in cold intent to silence her forever, he grabbed a knife and stabbed her repeatedly, until he was absolutely sure she wouldn't survive. No one could have imagined that inside the home of a friend, a place where trust and care were meant to exist, would be the stage for the final, horrific, agonizing moments of an 18-year-old girl's life. They say, the devil doesn't always come from hell. Sometimes it wears the face of a friend. And this is the most heartbreaking proof of that. Every wound on Dejah's body was not just physical. It was a betrayal, a painful reminder of how darkness can hide in plain sight, among those we love the most. Inside the interrogation room at Tyler Police Department, Jamaria Brittain appeared, confused, defensive. He dodged questions, changed his story multiple times, clinging to whatever scraps of denial he could find, as if he still believed he could escape the inevitable. But the truth, as it always does, waited patiently to be uncovered. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Dejah's body found behind the apartment, blood spattered throughout the home, a witness statement from a neighbor. Jamaria finally broke down. His head dropped, his hands trembled, and he confessed. He said that day, after picking up Dejah and the baby, they spent time talking. At one point, Dejah, always her cheerful self, playfully tugged on his ear. A harmless gesture. But to Jamaria, it triggered something dark. A wound that had never healed. His ex-girlfriend used to do the same thing. He claimed that emotions rushed over him like a wave, that he felt like he was back in that place of abandonment, betrayal, and silent pain. And in a fit of rage, he grabbed a liquor bottle and smashed it against Dejah's head. She collapsed, still alive, so he grabbed a hammer and struck her repeatedly. Then, with his bare hands, he choked her. In that moment, Jamaria wasn't looking at Dejah anymore. He was lashing out at years of rejection, pain, and internalized fury. After the attack, he planned to end his own life. He picked up a knife, tried to cut himself, then retrieved a gun he had just purchased the day before. He held it to his head, finger on the trigger. But then, a sudden knock at the door. A neighbor. The sound jolted him back to reality. He put the gun down, opened the door, pretended everything was fine. That's when he remembered the 1-year-old child sitting innocently in his room, watching cartoons. Jamari carried the baby and dropped her off at Day's mother's house, then returned to the apartment. That's when the most heartbreaking moment unfolded. Dejah, the friend who had trusted him, who came to help him during a rough time, was still alive. She weakly called his name, perhaps asking for help, perhaps believing my friend wouldn't hurt me. But instead of helping her, Jamaria picked up a knife and stabbed her over and over again, silencing her forever over a playful ear tug. Or was that just an excuse to cover the fragile ego that couldn't handle being rejected? He then wrapped her body in bedsheets, garbage bags, duct tape, and waited until 3 a.m. to throw her body over the fence behind the apartment. At around 7 a.m., he returned to the scene and covered her corpse with dead leaves, as if that could bury the truth. But no pile of leaves could ever cover up this crime. The bigger issue isn't just in one man's actions. It's in how society still underestimates the psychological damage of rejection. Being turned down, something that seems so minor, can feel like a blow to the ego for someone with deep emotional wounds. And when that ego is fragile, wounded, poisoned, the result is not just heartbreak. It can be someone's life. Crime of passion. It's a phrase used in legal textbooks, but in reality, it's paid for in blood, in destruction, in dreams that are forever cut short by the hands of someone who was supposed to be a friend. Dejah Hood's passing was not just a death, it was a cold, hollow, aching void, one that not even time could easily fill. When news of the tragedy spread, the entire community of Tyler, a quiet city in East Texas, fell into stunned silence. But those who felt the deepest pain were the ones who had known Dejah the closest.
She was working hard to leave to get a car.
I hate that got ripped away from her before it even started.
I know for a fact whatever he did to her, she had a strong fight.
You can't bring nobody back. She was there to comfort him because he didn't have nobody to talk to about things.
When you first meet her, it's like you know her already.
Sarah Evans, her best friend, simply couldn't believe what had happened. To Sarah, Dejah wasn't just a friend. She was a sister, a soulmate. They had grown up side by side, dreaming together, planning their futures, and promising to never leave each other behind. They would sit for hours, sketching out their move to Houston, a fresh start in a bigger city. Dejah would open her own hair salon. Sarah would become a nurse. They had promised, nothing will ever separate us. And then, everything shattered into a dream left unfinished. She once said to me, "I don't know how I'd live without you, but now I'm the one left behind, and the world no longer has Dejah in it." Dejah's mother, Rosalita, was devastated. Her little girl, who once giggled while styling her doll's hair, who grew up with that ever-radiant smile, was now only a memory. She showed that Dejah had just completed her nursing training. She had been saving up for her first car. Her dream? To take care of the elderly while running a small home-based hair salon. Dejah was always the kind to care for others before thinking of herself. She didn't hesitate to help a friend move, even late at night, even while babysitting a toddler. And in the end, That kindness led her to her death. Friends described her as a ray of sunshine, someone who could lift anyone's mood with just a word, a glance, old texts, goofy selfies, the sound of her laughter echoing in memory. Now, all that remains are the fragments of a life stolen too soon. Her final Instagram post was a soft, simple photo with a 2-word caption, _unforgettable. And a goodbye, a premonition, or maybe it was how she wanted the world to remember her. One thing's for sure, for those who knew her, Dejah Hood will forever be truly unforgettable. The story of Dejah Hood is not just another crime report, it's a wake-up call. It reminds us that sometimes the devil doesn't wear horns or bear fangs. It wears the face of a friend, someone familiar, someone we trust. Dejah wasn't the victim of a random mugging. She wasn't killed by a stranger in the dark. She was murdered by someone she trusted, someone she cared for, someone she was trying to help. A harmless joke, a playful tug on the air, became the spark that ignited a crime beyond forgiveness. Why? Because of a bruised ego, because of anger left unchecked, because rejection, something every adult must learn to accept, became the excuse to steal a life. We must ask ourselves, why does rejection, whether it's emotional, personal boundaries or a simple no, push some people to the edge? Have we failed to teach the next generation that true self-worth comes from mastering ourselves, not from trying to control others? Dejah could have lived a brilliant life. She had dreams, she had passion, she was loved, and she had a future waiting just beyond the horizon. But now, all that's left are regrets, tears, and the silent ache in the hearts of those who remain. No one deserves to die for being kind. No one deserves to leave this world just because someone else never learned to love with respect. And if you, the one watching this video, have ever felt overwhelmed by anger, hurt, or helplessness, please remember, one step back, one deep breath, one honest conversation could save a life. It could even save your own. Share this story, not to reopen wounds, but to spread the lesson, so that the name Dejah Hood is never forgotten, so that no one else has to die for something so senseless. Be kind, control your emotions, and if you're ever angry, take one step back. Just one step. Sometimes that's all it takes to change everything. And if you've stayed with us this far, hit that subscribe button to follow more real crime stories like this one. Thank you for watching,